Hey, do you want to see something that's making me depressed? This is making me depressed. Which is funny because this is an antidepressant and it works, and that's the problem. Because aren't I this guy who's here on YouTube and I'm sitting here week after week telling all of you it's fine, look, there's God, God is everywhere. What are we trying to do here at Off the Left Eye? What is all of this effort going towards? I thought we were trying to make it so that people were happy. If I'm sitting here immersed in this Swedenborg stuff all the time, the spirituality stuff, the life philosophy stuff, if I can't get it to go, does that just mean that none of this is going anywhere? No, there's got to be something more here than presents itself on the surface. And my first thought is, I have this notion that I'm operating under that physical stuff should obey the spiritual. So if I have these ideas in my mind where I know about heaven and God and that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter what my body's doing, doesn't matter what the brain chemistry is. You got sacred holiness fixing everything. But a lot of the time, life is quite a struggle, and the physical side is what's making it a struggle. The disease and issues of all kinds that just stick to this heavy material that we're stuck in. Look at history. Phineas Gage. He was working on some kind of railroad, and I don't know how, but there was an accident where a railroad spike went through him, went through his head. But he was okay. He just had his brain hit by it. He could still function and everything, and his personality completely changed. There was a huge personality shift when you might think could only be spiritual related because of this physical thing that happened. So here we are navigating this world that the physical plays a part in and the spiritual plays a part in, and that's how it is. There's my conclusion. But also I want to challenge this assumption that the spiritual stuff, once you start to get into it and you see the light, then life gets easier. Swedenborg had this journal of dreams where he sat down and wrote when the process of his awakening was happening. He was having all these dreams, and were they happy dreams? Was he saying, I saw this light and everyone came? They were rough. There was all kinds of, he was totally broken down. He felt like he was totally selfish. He was afraid. He was crying out to God for help. This was not a fun period for him. Even after the dream period, when he was in his spiritual phase, he would write all stories all the time saying, oh, I was there tending the fire, and then suddenly some spirits attacked me and made so much pain in my jaw that I fell over. It didn't seem like, for Swedenborg, the spiritual stuff was a path to an easy life. And even after that, he was trying to write and publish his books, and people were attacking him and putting him on trial, and the stuff in his life did not get easier just because he got spiritual. Okay, so maybe Swedenborg isn't good enough for you. How about Jesus Christ? How was Jesus' life? Would you want that life? Here we have, this is not just somebody who's on the path to God. This is God having a life, and it was absolute, not chaos, but tragedy. There was some cool stuff that happened, but what was that thing that happened right at the end of it? Crucifixion, but even the temptation in the wilderness, and you get Swedenborg describing the inner struggles of Jesus Christ, of our role model, and it's just this whole life, he's in the trenches of this battling with all this stuff that's trying to attack the human race. If Jesus couldn't escape suffering by being spiritual, what are we even doing? What chances do we have? But then I came across this idea in Swedenborg. The universe was created so that usefulness could exist. So my struggles, everything that I'm going through, if I'm looking at them and saying, well, how happy am I? How happy am I now that I've got more spiritual stuff? Am I happy? That might be the wrong barometer. Because in his stuff, Swedenborg explicitly says you can't grow spiritually without times of crisis. That is an essential, unmanufacturable by the body nutrient that we have to get through this humbling that happens. That when stuff is tough, if everything went well for me, which don't worry, it never has. If everything went well for me all the time, I would never have to face my own selfishness. I would never have to confront my dark side because it would just always get what it wants, and so it would play nice. I would never be able to really see other people as much people as I am. That's when you realize that relieving everybody's suffering is more important than me getting everything I want, that there's greater value in the next person getting happiness. The point of this stuff is not to take away the negative times, it's to make the negative times useful, because you just know how much of a treasure happiness is when you've been without it for a while. So the principles I learned that I was talking to you about before, that God exists, that everything is going to be okay. That doesn't mean everything seems like it's going to be okay, but it means that when I'm in that time and I feel like I'm at the end of my resources and I don't know what to do and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull through this, no, I'm not going to be able to pull through this. God can pull me through this. And unless I experienced this, I can't do this, you'd never actually believe it for real that God is doing that stuff. But what this can do is create the conditions in me where the bad stuff that does happen can have the greatest net effect on my spirit, because I understand in those moments, to a little extent, as God brings me along, what am I trying to let go of, and what is going to get me through this, and how can this crucible, these little crucibles that we all go through, be a chance in which we get to lean on reality and see that, I needed God here. I couldn't have done this. And I understand what's really important in life. Sometimes this is this. Sometimes you can get in and read some idea and it lifts you up and you're feeling good, but it doesn't last always, and the next wave of anxiety and depression comes in. If I'm so washed out by anxiety and depression that I can't function and that I can't be useful in the world, but also I can't really make any progress in my own negativity because I'm just so overwhelmed by it, that's not serving anything spiritual. If this is the tool, and it's a great tool for me, you may have tools that work for you, can get me to a place where usefulness can take place, where it gets me to my optimum usefulness level, then that is spiritual. So this is giving me, in part, usefulness. And once in a while it gives me diarrhea.